What's up, folks? I'm Dwayne, and this is Blackboard Gaming, where we teach you about all these great board games that are out there, waiting to be played by you and yours. I'm a simple man, don't wanna complication. Complication. Hey, everybody. Essen Spiel 2025 is happening in just a few days. And for those of you that don't know, but I'm pretty sure everybody does, Essen Spiel is the biggest board game convention in the world, and it's happening over in Essen, Germany. And they are showcasing over 1,300 games. Now, over on the Board Game Geek website, they have a preview list of all the games that are being displayed or sold there. And I really was trying to avoid looking at that list because, it's a lot of games that immediate games I have access to that I haven't played. I'm getting them played. But, of course, being someone who really loves board games as much as I do, I couldn't help myself. So I went on ahead and took a look at the list. And like I said, it is an extensive list, over 1,300 games. But I was able to whittle it down to 10 games that I am most excited for that's available for purchase over at Essen Spiel. And I do have one honorable mention, and it's an honorable mention because it's an expansion. Now, the first 5 games are smaller games, like more card games, but the next 5 are more the bigger, more complex games. And these games are not rated in any specific order, so they're not numbered 10 to 1, but I'm just going to fire them off for you. So without wasting any time, we're going to go ahead and get right to it. So the first game, like I said, the honorable mention is the expansion for a game, one of my favorite games of 2024, and that is SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And so they are releasing their first expansion, which is called SETI Space Agencies, which is going to introduce asymmetric companies as well as some new aliens. I want to say there's 3 new aliens, maybe just 2, I'm not sure. But I think this is going to fix some of the issues that people have had with SETI. Didn't have any issues with SETI, but I am looking forward to the new aliens, and I'm looking forward to asymmetric powers, kind of think Terraforming Mars with their Prelude expansion. And so I am excited to get a hold to this expansion. So let's get right into the list. So I got my paper here just in case I need to refer to it, but I'm going to do my best. So the first game is a small card game called Tenby. Now, I was immediately attracted to this game, well, first because of the quirky art. And this is a card drafting, pattern. You're making a pattern building game where you're building up the city. It's Tenby, which is probably what they say is one of the most beautiful cities in Welsh, And in getting my wife, introducing my wife to board games, the ones that I've had the most success with is like, we've talked about them before, is Walking in Burano. There's Santa Monica. And then the most recent one is Big Sur. So I've had a lot of success in showing these games to my wife, Alicia. So I think Tenby would be of no different, And so, like I said, Tenby is just card drafting. You're building up your tableau of cards, trying to build patterns. And I think there's some like adjacency scoring or whatever. And I am enamored with the quirky art that's in this game. So that's my first pick. I would definitely pick that game up. Now, the second game that I will pick up is a game called Fearless from Friedman Freeze. And this is a trick-taking game, and it's themed where we are walking through a spooky, some spooky woods, and we are trying not to veer off the path. We're trying to stay balanced. So from what I understand, your basic trick-taking. You have to follow suit. And there are 4 suits, but there's no trump suit. The thing is, each of the suits had not only have positive numbers, but they have negative numbers. So I think what you're trying to do is when you win a trick, you want to try to stay balanced, because I'm thinking that when you look at a trick, you add up your positive numbers and then add up your negative numbers, and whatever the difference, that's your score for the trick. And that's how people get points in this game. Now, I'm really interested in this because last year, another game that was my favorite game of one of my favorite games of 2024 was a game called Fishing. And that's a trick-taking game. And I'm always trying to find some trick-taking games that don't add too much complexity or too much off the beat, where I can introduce to people, because most of my friends, they do play trick-taking games like spades and stuff like that. So I want to try to, you try to show them familiarity. And so Fearless, and like I said, it's horror theme, so that gives it an extra notch. Friedman Freeze has some nice little quirky games. Fast Sloth is one of our favorites over here. And like I said, Fishing, favorite of last year, really enjoyed that one. So I would definitely pick up Fearless. Now, speaking of trick-taking games, the next game that I would pick up is a game called Movie Tricks. And so, like I said, this is a trick-taking game, but you're making a movie. So I was looking at the playthrough of this, and what you're doing, you're going to have 4 cards in front of you, and they represent aspects of a movie. There's roles, there's props, there's the soundtrack, and there's CGI, And so there are going to be some cards available to draft. Everybody's going to get dealt a hand of cards. So you're going to play your basic trick-taking game, and then playing cards. And then whoever wins the trick, they get the first player token, but they also are first to draft one of those cards, and they're going to place them in one of those rows, trying to build up their CGI or their roles or their soundtrack in order to score points at the end of the game. And then the cards from the trick are the next tricks that are available to draft going into the next round. And so, like I said, I'm attracted to this because of the theme. You're making a movie. I'm not sure I could, I think I could introduce this to more of my gamery friends. I don't think I can show this to somebody that's like new to, just basic trick taking is their thing. But I am really interested in this one because with the complexity, it kind of reminds me of one of the card games. My favorite card game is Wind the Film, So I think this kind of matches that complexity for me. So I'm really interested in checking this out. Now, speaking of Wind the Film, Wind the Film is published by a company called Sashi and Sashi, which is probably one of my favorite board game publishers. And I'm trying to get a hold to all of their games. So they have a game that's coming out at Essen called Shall We Dance? And Shall We Dance is just a simple card game where you have cards with, the different genders. You have the gentlemen on one cards and some cards, and the ladies on the other cards, and they're different colors. And what you're trying to do is pair them in front of you, like Shall We Dance, dance partners or whatever. Now, the cool thing from what I understand is as you pair, you're playing 1 to 3 cards and you're trying to get them out there. But if you see if one of your opponents has let's say they have a gentleman that doesn't have a partner, you can actually take that gentleman and add it to the lady of the same color. But they get some points because of that. And that's pretty much all you're doing. And speaking of quirky art, I love when Sashi and Sashi, some of their themes can be quirky, but they're really fun. And that's why I like, because the themes are unique for Sashi and Sashi. So, that's my next one, Shall We Dance? So, the next one, speaking of movies, there's a game that's like just a smaller game. It's called Popcorn. And Popcorn in this game, you are running a movie theater. and you are going out, buying movies to put into your theaters, you're buying seating, you're activating advertising, and then it's a bag pulling game where you have your guests of different colors in this bag. And on your turn, you're going to draw a certain number of guests, and then you're going to assign them to the different movie theaters, and you're going to be scoring different bonuses, especially if the guests match up with the type of movie. So the movie, there's yellow, red, blue, and I believe green also. And so the thing is, you're trying to score the most popcorn. There's these popcorn tokens, and that's your score. So, I mean, my wife and I, we played a game several years ago. One of our earliest games that I introduced my wife to was called The Networks, where we are running a television station. And she really enjoyed it because of that thing, So I think that she probably would be interested in trying this game out, and that's popcorn, So let me check my list out, because I think I'm halfway through already. That's cool. So now we got into the slightly bigger games. So the next game that I definitely will pick up is Coming of Age. Now, I'm attracted to this game simply for two things. One, the designer, Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia had designed Windmill Valley that my wife enjoyed. And also there's a game that I have on the table right now. It's Neko Syndicate, where we are cats smuggling sushi. And the other game, I cannot remember the name of it, but it's a game that I did introduce my wife to, and she really did enjoy it. And also because of the theme, I think my wife would really be attracted to the theme because, like I said, you're coming of age. You're living out your childhood life, and you're going to do some things that are built and deciding which path you're going to take into adulthood. And like one of the games that my wife really enjoys is the Pursuit of Happiness. So I got a feeling that she'll probably really enjoy this one also. So the next game is a game strictly for me. And that is a game called Bohemians. Bohemians is a game where we take on the role of wandering artists, and it is set in Paris. And we're pretty much, it's a deck building game where we're playing cards out, and it's going to describe what our day is going, how our day goes. Are we going to work, or we're, looking for our muse. We're trying to gain inspiration in order to paint or draw our, paint our picture or whatever. And you're trying to match up these symbols on the cards, and I was attracted to it just strictly for the theme. I'm going to leave a link in the description below, because I did watch a teach of this game, and I was like, I really want to play this game, because it kind of reminds me a little of a game that I had where you're making up your own story, Call to Adventure. So I definitely want to try this one out. Like I said, it's set in Paris. Now, these next three are... if I was to rate these next three would probably be in my top three. So the first one, this next one is called Urban Sketchers. Speaking of artists, in Urban Sketchers, we are traveling the world. It's a dice drafting, dice worker placement game. We're traveling the world, and we are publishing our sketches, in our journals per se. And so on the player's turn, you're going to draft dice, and then you're going to take a certain action. And the action is to gain resources, or to travel around the world, or to actually play the cards, which are your sketches. And it's a set collection. You're trying to build up your journal for those sketches at that specific locale. Now, it had me at dice placement, dice drafting, dice worker placement. I love worker placement, whether it be dice, whether it be workers or whatever, but anything with dice. And I was looking at the aesthetics of this game and the art, and I would just love how the pictures look like actual sketches. Like most art in game start off as sketches, but this looks like the base sketch of the art before you put the paint onto the card, and so urban sketches, that's really high up there. Now, the next one is a game that called Fez Swamp. Now, Fez Swamp, from what I understand, is designed by the same folks that, or maybe co-designed, same folks that had put out popular games like Gaia Project or Terra Mystica or Age of Innovation. Now, mind you, I have not played either one of those games. So I am strictly attracted to this game because of the theme. We are clans. We're trying to build up our clans out in the swamp. And we are sailing our boat around, trying to build up buildings and next to spirits in order to score points. And we're doing some trading. We're doing some fishing. And I am just really attracted to the art. So this might be my first taste into these designers, my first taste in trying out their games. And so I'm hoping that they don't do me wrong, which I'm pretty sure they're not. I think that this is going to be a really good game. And like I said, it's a little bit on the heavier side. Now, the last one is a game that I was excited about because of the designer. So the designer is Tomas Holick. At last year's Essen, he put out 3 games, and all 3 of these games were bangers. That's SETI, and that's Galileo Galilei, and then Tea Garden. Now, I thought I heard somewhere, don't quote me on it, that Aquaria he almost put out at last year's Essen, but he was advised, like, pull it back, hold it back, let's wait till the next time, which I'm glad he did, because that would have had my head blown. But Aquaria, in this game, you are building up, you are creating your own aquarium, and you are going to draft these cards like clownfish, there's lionfish, and then there's just schools of fish. And it's a worker placement game, and you moving your worker around this, like, well, it's not really going around, but you're moving your worker to these different spots on this round action board, So you might could say it's a rondel, but it doesn't act like one. And you're doing things like you're drafting cards, you're gaining oxygen because you need oxygen to place these fish into your aquarium. You're getting food because you got to make sure you feed your fish. And the thing about it is, when you play these cards, like I said, it costs oxygen, but you play them into your aquarium, and there's some spatial things you have to pay attention to. Like one thing you got to pay attention to is when you place those fish into your aquarium, you're going to turn the dials, and the dials represent you taking care of your aquarium. And so the game's going to last 4 rounds, and the 4 rounds have different colors. So you want to try to make sure your dial, let's say the first round is red, you want to make sure that all your dials are turned to red at the end of the round, because you get a certain bonus, or you get to do a certain thing. Now, like I said, I'm excited for this because of the theme. Tomas Holick quickly becoming one of my favorite board game designers. And he's actually releasing 3 more games at this Essen. And then he has another one that's demo. It's a horror game, which, I really don't get big into horror, but I would try that game simply because he's the designer. So I would want to see what he does with this theme. And he's also releasing expansions for all 3 of his games. Like I said, I talked about SETI at the beginning of this video. And so Aquaria, I'm really, really excited. I would consider that my number 1. That would be the first one I would want to pick up. And so there you have it. Let me make sure I did. I think I talked about all of them. Yep, I did. Those are the 10 games that I'm most excited for that's coming out of Essen, that's available for purchase. Now, in the comments below, let me know that if you are going to Essen, let me know what's the first game you would want to get your hands on. And if you're not going to Essen, still let me know. What games are you most excited for that's coming out at Essen Spiel? And if you like the contents of this video, feel free to hit that like button. Subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I'm Dwayne. This has been Blackboard Gaming, and I will see you next time.